Right, hello, Fierce the Dead YouTube channel. Hello.
Hi.
You all right?
Hello.
I'm here with Nick and Lawrence. How you doing? All right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
nice to see
All
you.
right. Yeah.
Very nice to see you. So, what have you been up to in the exciting world of lockdown? Not seen anyone for a while.
No, I was barely going out before lockdown, so it's kind of like an extension of my normal routine.
I, I'm not that bothered, really.
Yeah.
I'm letting society crumble and see what
Yeah.
happens.
I try and avoid going out as much as possible, so it has just been just normal for me. Other
I
than the
mean,
fact that the kids are in the house constantly.
this is where that's the hard bit, isn't it? So
Yeah.
trying to, yeah, that's the bit I've. Yeah, that's more difficult. That bit, I'm afraid. I mean, not that it's just it's nice. It's nice to be able to have that sort of closure between when you daytime and the evening, isn't it? When the family stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, it is what it is. So new band from Team Horse. Is Trojan Horse actually dead now? Oh, there's hope. There's hope, Trojan Horse fans.
Just hibernating. If horses hibernated, then it would be a hibernating horse.
Yeah.
I listened to the news stuff, and there's definitely from the last horse stuff. There's definitely a line to what you're doing now. It's got sort of reminding me a bit of sort of Sheffield 1981, 82 sort of feel.
Yeah.
Mute Records, that sort of thing. I thought sounded really good. But I think if people were into the last stuff you were doing as Trojan Horse, they won't be that shocked. This is more slightly poppier, I suppose, and slightly more electronic and experimental on those. It's experimental in a different way, isn't it? But
Yeah.
it's not so intensely arranged or anything like that, is it?
No, nowhere near. It's got a bit more of a sort of solid structure to it, I suppose. Not so much verse chorus like usual pop structure, but it has got a sort of more straightforward. A lot of it's tempo. It's the same tempo all the way through.
I know.
There's no time signature changes or anything like that. So it's
They're good tunes. I was really impressed. I'd listened today because I had listened a while back, and then because you don't promote yourselves enough, and which you should do. I just
Not ready yet. Not finished yet, so we're not.
we're just putting tracks on the internet and not playing to anyone. You should play. But so wait, is there an album coming then?
well, there's about 3 albums coming as far as we know.
What have you got then?
Well, we've got about 3 albums worth of stuff.
Oh, brilliant!
Written, recorded, ready to go, pretty much. It's all, well, like you say, some of it, the sort of the first album is very much coming out of the sessions that were the last Trojan Horse album. It was sort of, it morphed into this new sort of thing. But as you say, there is a sort of more poppier element to it, and we were a lot less afraid to sort of write songs as opposed to just trying, as opposed to what like we did in Trojan Horses, trying to avoid that like the plague.
I mean, I love Trojan Horse. Don't get me wrong, but it's nice to hear a band that is actually being progressive rather than talking about being progressive, which is the idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we'd written the last album, and then we didn't really stop writing. So it was kind of, we went from finishing the third album, and then we had a load of stuff left over that then became like the Wicker EP.
Yeah.
Then like the difference between even those two releases was quite, that sort of bridged it. But then we just kept writing and writing and writing, and the more we were writing, like I think the shapes off the third album's like probably the one that's most kind of keeps that thread all the way through from the third album to Wicker to what we're doing now. Like we started writing Trojan Horse 4, and then like it just becomes increasingly difficult. Like when you've got, look, we had a drummer that lives in a completely different city. Loz has got kids, we've got jobs, and it's just one of those where you kind of, as a band, it was getting increasingly more difficult to get together just to even rehearse for gigs, let alone like write together. So we kind of just got to a point where we were like, well, these songs don't really sound they have that sound, but they don't really sound like the Trojan Horse we all know and love. The inverted commas. I mean, we all love it. That's not the inverted commas. Trojan Horse is the inverted commas bit.
I loved you guys. I thought you were brilliant.
Well, yeah, but that's not going to go away. It's not it's not gone. I think we just sort of got to a point where we were like, well, it doesn't really we're going to have to reconfigure ourselves anyway for it to work in this new sort of like sound. So why not just do it as something different? And then we wrote half an album, and then Loz was like, well, I've got these other songs that sounds nothing like that. So we sort of shelved that half of the Trojan Horse 4, and then sort of like said, right, day dot, we'll just start something new and write a load of new songs, and then not stopped writing since. So I've kind of in my role, I've sort of taken a back seat on this new phase, and like Loz has come to the forefront, and this is I say this is like the phase 2, because the phase 1 was kind of like more me going, this is what we are going to do, whereas now it's Loz going, this is what I think we should do. So.
I think that's really cool though, that you're sort of, there's different people taking the creative lead there. That's brilliant. It's really hard to sort of. Will you so what's the plan for release then? How are you going to release it? Bandcamp it, or are you going to try and put it out through a label, or what's the plan?
It's all a bit up in the air at the minute. We've been sort of talking to a very small label, but it's not really sort of materialised too much. We've also been talking to Rack as well, because obviously they put out the stuff as for us, the Meat Eater single a few years back. I mean, it's like 6 years now, isn't it?
That's my apart from the Fire EP, the Meat Eater single is my favourite Trojan Horse track. I love that. It was brilliant.
All the short stuff then.
I like short, fast stuff. Yeah. I haven't got my attention span's ruined, so I can't enjoy it.
It's all the Fugazi sort of feeling stuff, isn't it? The punky fast stuff.
I love all that stuff. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the Fire EP came now, and it sounded so fresh at the time. You know what I mean? I mean, how long ago was that? 8 years?
Oh God, yeah. It was definitely 2011, 12 maybe, because it was like pretty much off the back of the first album, which was 2010. So, yeah.
Oh God.
But even that album's like that album, that first album is like probably nearly 15 years old from the very first, like when we very first started writing and recording it. We didn't release it for like 4 years, so it's probably like nearly a decade and a half old, that first album. Some of it anyway. Like.
I mean, we were gigging it for years before we released it, weren't we?
Yeah.
Well, by the time we saw you play, you had really nailed the live show was fantastic at that point. I mean, you seemed really confident and sort of.
We played a lot of gigs. That's what it was. Like we played with like various different, like when we first started, I was just like, we're just going to play every single gig that we get offered, much to a lot of the time to our detriment, because we'd just be put on bills that wouldn't fit. But I was just like, no, fuck it. We're going to gig. I don't care. Like. So in a way, we kind of took on all the best aspects of all the other bands that we were seeing that were completely different from us, and sort of like, by the time you guys had seen us, me and Loz certainly had been fucking like banging away for God.
I think the first time we saw you was Salford in 2011.
Yeah, so we started. So we've been going for 5 years by that point.
So what's the plans for live gigs for the new material?
I don't know.
It sounds like it'd be more the sort of thing you with more sequencing going on. There'd be more.
Yeah. I think and we approached not only do we approach the writing in a different way, we sort of thought about how it would work live in a different way. So essentially, we could play it as one person. You could press play and play it. One person could play along. So
I was thinking. It's quite cinematic, so it'd be good with projections and sort of.
Yeah.
It's that's kind of do, isn't it? Sort of, like the.
Yeah.
I was thinking like the early Human League and things like that, where they had all the projections, and it's quite atmospheric stuff, isn't it? So.
Yeah.
I'd
And
like
that's
to hear the
definitely the
whole
feel we're
album.
going for. Anyway, it's. I'm glad you said that because that's sort of what that's the direction we're heading in, really.
Yeah, I mean,
And it,
you can hear the reference points, and it's quite an original sound. But I don't think it sounds retro. I think it sounds quite modern, actually. So I don't think it's a, throwback. I think you can hear there's different influences in there. But one of the things is you've been playing together so long. It's well, literally since forever for you guys, isn't it? So
yeah,
uh, you know, so there's a magic to it, isn't there? There's a magic to the
I mean, some might call
way
it.
you
Some
can
might
play
call
any style of music and it still have your stamp to it, won't it? To love that Dukeism. Because I mean, me and Kevin Stewart have been playing together for 25 years, so we've got the same thing. We can play virtually any style of music, but we can still. It's still the same, isn't it?
Sounds like you, yeah.
Yeah, and
And
that interaction. And I think a lot of it as well. If you can nod at someone and go, and they can get the reference point really quickly, it's like it's a bit of a Zeppelin bit here, and then it goes into sort of different, and you can all the reference points are there. But one of the problems if you've been playing with people for a long time, you go into another band and it's like they don't know the references or they don't know how to, and you can't do the quick nods or what I mean. It's really weird, isn't it? So
I've started playing bass with like another band because at the end of what we were doing with Trojan Horse, I was like, well, because we're not doing much in terms of gigging. I'll just go off and play for other people. So started playing bass for another band, and then switched over to guitar for them, and it's just it is really like having to relearn everything because you're having to relearn a shared vocabulary. So in a room with completely different people, it's like it's like you're sort of like trying to speak, although you're speaking the language of music, but also you kind of you're having to all your reference points are off, all the points at which you can just say, oh well, this is what I mean, or that's what I mean. Like learning other people's guitar parts for them trying to teach is so hard. Like it's not necessarily hard, but it's just you're just having to start from scratch again in a way.
I when I do sessions with people and they send me stuff, or I do the odd bit for and that, so I have to learn covers sometimes to do the stuff I do with my day job and that, and it's like when I'm and it makes you realise how you just in your own little bubble most of the time, and and most people just don't know the reference points, or their reference points might be slightly different and stuff. But so you are when you do. So what's the plan for gigs? You're not just it happens once the album's done. But do you think you'll do like a launch gig like you did for the last record then?
Well, are there any venues that are going to be open for the next
Well, one of the things you could do though, if you're with something that's quite cinematic, you could do some interesting streaming things, couldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you present things. I think. I like bands that make things events. Look at like Ulver do or something like that. You know what I mean? Where they make it an event rather than make. Yeah. I think the world doesn't need more bands playing in pubs. I think the world's all right for that. But I think that what they need is really special one-off events where something amazing happens, where they go and they see some heavy projections of. And it really moves them and makes people cry or makes them, they feel joy or something. You know what I mean? And I think the world is short of that, but the world is not short of people playing progressive rock in pubs. So,
I think the thing is that like Loz was saying, it was like you could either you can take it as a few different ways. Like it's one person could turn up with a laptop and sing it to a backing track because like all the stuff's there and it's already pre-sequenced, or you can sort of like pull it out and deconstruct it, make it as complicated as you want, and have 20 people behind you like doing stuff, whether that's visuals or like 19 other people playing things.
That'd be really cool. You could run that. Sorry.
It's simple enough to either layer that sort of stuff on top of, or like pull it right in and just be like, no, it's this small little thing and I'm going to go out and do it. And well, you two aren't available to do the gig this week. Well, I'll just Loz just goes out and does it himself. It's kind of with the old band. It was kind of like, I say the old band, the hibernating band is that it's complicated and you need to rehearse it to sort of perfection in a way to get it right.
I like the idea of, so would you run it off Ableton Live then?
Yeah.
That'd be awesome,
Well,
wouldn't it? And then
yeah.
you can just bring in, if you've got a bass player for that gig, if you've got a keyboard, extra keyboard player, you've got someone, you could just bring them in as required, couldn't you? That'd be so cool. And then also with Ableton, you could improvise a lot more easily as well.
Yeah,
because you can
I've got an Ableton setup, an Ableton Live setup anyway. So I'm kind of like that side of it, whereas Loz and Eden are going to do their respective parts and we'll work it that way around. So, but I don't like we've not even got in a room to work out a set yet. It's more we've just been recording. So it's
great if you've got 3 albums worth of stuff though. That's great, isn't it? So if you've got you can release stuff over the next. If you could put out an album every year, like with 3 singles to Spotify, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
I think and I think that's at the moment the best strategy is just to release stuff, rather than putting albums out every 2 or 3 years, put out singles.
It's to keep going. It's like a long thread.
Yeah. And if you can tell us, like the video stuff I've seen you doing for the other bit, that looks really interesting as well. So, I mean, I just
It's all, and I mean, we're doing it all ourselves as well, like completely, like we're recording the videos and editing it all. Well, I'm recording and editing it all myself, so it's a bit like we've got complete control over the whole, I mean, the whole package. It's artistically, we are entirely in control of this whole thing. We're not relying on video editors or whoever to realize that whatever it is that we've got in our heads, we can put it there like that.
And if you're doing it yourself as well, you're getting the skills to be able to develop that over, 5-10 years. The more skills you develop in that area, the more. I mean, that's why I always wanted to learn. Like we're recording everything ourselves, videos, content we do. We've got Mark who does it, and we do a lot of it ourselves. And I'm quite happy, but I like that. You know what I mean? I used to crave being like I said to Kev, a few years ago now, but there's no one coming to save us. There's no one. We've got to do it ourselves. There's no one's coming.
There's no like national lottery. It's you.
No
coming down.
No one's coming. You've got unless we do this ourselves. And I think, but one of the things that really excites me at the moment is like with YouTube and stuff, we can just do stuff like this, and say a couple of 100 people watch this conversation. Yeah, well, that's like doing a gig to people. Yeah. Now, when we did Stabbing a Dead Horse tour, how often did we play to 200 people?
Once, twice,
every night.
Every night, obviously, it was sold out. But the thing is, now we've got 200 people watching. You two drink beer and me sit here in my back bedroom. So it's like, but at least you can engage with those people, and there's more of an opportunity than when this world of Zoom and that wasn't there when we were doing Stabbing a Dead Horse. Me and Kev did the podcast about Stabbing a Dead Horse. What were your exciting memories of it?
Kicking a coffee out of your hand.
I remember that. I've not forgiven you for that, actually.
I know. Do you know what? When all the way through that podcast, I was thinking, I wonder if he's going to mention it. And then it got near the end, and you mentioned it, and I was just like,
never forgiven him.
I still feel guilty for the pain. God, kills me.
But we had such a good time, and as much as it makes me feel awkward to say anything nice about you, but it was such an absolute pleasure to hang out with you guys. And it was, it's not men aren't very good at saying very nice things to each other, but it was, it was lovely just hanging out. And I couldn't have wished to be, in a bus with different people for seven days. It was fantastic. And, post that, it's been so nice to see Carvis do so well after that as well. And sort of, he's doing Gong and that now. And it's brilliant. I'm really, really, he's such a nice guy, you know what I mean? It's just really great to see him do so well. And we've all had a bizarre sort of 10 years. I mean, God, who'd have predicted we'd be in this, dystopian sci-fi world we live in now then?
Yeah. Us?
We did.
We were sitting back 10 years ago. So, the chickens have come home to roost, unfortunately.
all
And we
those
still are.
bad
We're still
vibes,
thinking about it now. We're still thinking about it now.
all that negativity just ruined it.
It's our fault. Well, we
Yeah.
split up all this shit. We said we were going to go on hiatus, and all this shit happened. So
Well,
Yeah.
joined you. Yeah, it's
pretty much our fault. Yeah.
But it was. I mean, listening to that podcast, it was sort of. You have those memories of it, but it just sort of all came flooding back, and I was smiling the whole way through it. And I thought back, and I was thinking back on it today, and I was thinking, I suppose it was a very rare opportunity that we had, that actually we all got along. We were there was like, how many of us in a van for a week? Like 8 of us in a van for a week.
Yeah.
How rare is it to get 8 people together like that in such close quarters? You see each other at your best and your worst.
Yeah.
And actually, for us all to get along so well that week, other than Nick kicking coffee out your hand.
I mean, the thing as well.
I didn't even know you at that point. Like, I hardly knew you, but after that, it felt like we were brothers.
I remember, but I mean, I talked to a lot of my mates about when they've toured and stuff, and the touring, people do gigs, and all I ever hear is horror stories about being stuck on a bus with people and how awful it is. And I'm like, well, every time we've done gigs, it's been all right. I've never really had any. I think a lot of it's, perhaps because we do it because you love it, and it's not our, we're not relying on it as a main income or anything. But I do it because it's fun. You know what I mean? And it was great though, wasn't it? It was really great.
Yeah, it was fun, and it was like me and you had kind of like known each other from
Twitter.
like the internet, and it was like we didn't really know each other other than speaking. And everybody else was just expected, like, off the back of me and you going, oh yeah, we've got bands and they sound cool and we should start out this tour. Everybody else was expected to get in a van and just be like, oh yeah, it's fine, yeah, it's cool, yeah, everything's fine. But like, genuinely, it did turn out to be great enough. It's like, since then, I've been on tour as like a sort of like hand for hire, like guitarist, and it's been nothing like that. Like, it's like I've never had an experience where I've just gone, get in a van, start driving somewhere with 4 people that you don't really know, like, and my 2 brothers and Guy, who did a load of the driving as well, and it was just like, this is really fucking good. And like, apart from the like Knife World van like blowing up, bless him, like the 2 or 3 times it broke down, like,
that was. I mean, it was a bit weird because it was the sort of the start. The internet wasn't where it is now. You couldn't do things like this.
No.
And, there was,
Twitter was nice. Twitter was a nice place.
Twitter was amazing. It's hard to, but Twitter was a very supportive, lovely sort of community. It was all very much DIY community projects, things like that, crowdfunding. It was all that kind of thing, wasn't it? And Prog magazine had just arrived, really, and it's been around 2 or 3 years, and they wanted to get behind something new. People were coming out to the shows. I mean, it wasn't spectacularly attended, but none of them were completely empty, were they? Sheffield was quiet. Sheffield was pretty quiet, but most of them were pretty good. Sheffield and Norwich.
Yeah.
But sort of 5 out of
never
7.
say that bloody name.
the Norwich word.
Yeah, the N word. Yeah.
But most of the 5 out of 7 shows were well attended, and but yeah, Norwich was a bit weird, but most of the shows were, and there was a general sort of, I think a lot of it, we had a lot of goodwill from people we'd met on Twitter, wasn't there?
Yeah.
We met on Facebook and Twitter and stuff. And then there was a lot of goodwill from Carvis with Cardiac's crew, weren't there? Yeah. So we had a bit of everything.
But I think you said it in the last podcast, like, the amazing thing was that, like, we would go to these places like Glasgow. Like, we'd never played Glasgow before. No. You'd never played Glasgow before, to my knowledge. And, like, I think probably Carver's had played, like, in other bands and what have you. But, like, we'd go to places and we'd never have been there. And people were turning up and they were excited to be there. And they were getting there before the gig and, like, talking to us and helping us with gear and stuff like that. And it was one of those really affirming sort of, like, situations where you go in, actually, like, I've played gigs all around the UK, and like you get these pockets of people who sort of like coalesce around the scene or whatever, but like, we were just sort of turning up, like, out of, well, sort of semi out of the blue, but like like just turning up in places that we'd never been, and like loads of people were like interested, and they were buying all the merch, and they were like,
it was amazing.
What do you want? We'll sort you out. We'll blah blah blah. So it was kind of like a really nice for all three of the bands. To sort of,
it was I think it was one of those things. It was just a miracle. It wasn't that it just a miracle it worked at all, really. And it was so nice to sort of. It was a miracle, but of all the gigs we've done, they're the happiest. Some of the happiest memories I've got. You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah, definitely, yes.
It was just because it was just so funny, and we met, and I still get people to this day say to me, "Oh, yeah, I saw that Stabbing a Dead Horse tour. That was really good." You know what I mean? It's like, and that's the best you can hope for 8 years later.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like if people are still mentioning it now, like at the time, I just thought it was three lots of people who really like it. Like we all like each other's bands. We'd go on tour and like hopefully we'll sell a bit of merch. If people are still mentioning it, like nearly 10 years later, like that's fucking amazing to me.
It's just nuts, isn't it? I mean, I just feel really lucky to have had that experience, and because I know a lot of people in bands, it's like. I mean, I think then we didn't know anyone, did we? Really, we didn't have a great deal of contacts. We were just making up as you went along, weren't we? We didn't know what we were doing. Carvers knew what he was doing a little bit more. I think
we aimed for like fucking like nearly 2 weeks, and we got 7 days out of it. So like we were just like, well, let's and like to play. You can tell that we didn't really know what we were doing because one day we were playing in Bristol, and next day we were playing in Glasgow, and then the day after that we were playing in Norwich. I think that kind of like really highlights that we didn't know what.
Tour routing was not the.
That just shows that there was definitely like a gap in the day, like
you had to go somewhere.
Itinerary where I was just like. Has anybody got a gig, please? And Glasgow probably popped up, and I was just like, we'll take it. So.
It's a bit different now because of the internet. I mean, because we got with Spotify, Bandcamp, I can look at and Facebook and look at the data now and say, well, look, 200 or 300 people in that town, we can probably sell 50 to 100 tickets. So it's like with us, I can look at Manchester, London, Bristol, Glasgow, and think, well, we can do 50 to 100 tickets. Find a small venue, sell it out. We can do that, but it's not as exciting as going. Oh, let's just get in the van and because it was in them days. It was like Black Flag or something. It's like my childhood dreams pretend to be Henry Rollins.
I was like, I would always because one of my favorite books is Our Band Could Be Your Life. I don't know if you've read that.
Me too. Yeah.
But, yeah, like and reading some of the stories from that of like Minor Threat and Black Flag and like the Minutemen and shit like that, where you just like they literally just got in a van and like especially with Black Flag, like some of the Henry Rollins years where they just go to like a thrift store and buy as many clothes as they possibly could in bin liners, and then like during the tour they wouldn't like wash the clothes, they just grab something new out of the bin liner and that's what they'd wear on stage that night. So it's kind of like you sort of like look back at that sort of thing, and I was just thinking like it's not going to be like that, but it kind of feels like we don't know what the fuck we're doing, and we're just getting in a van and turning up somewhere because we'd never done anything to that extent. Even though a 7-day tour is not a massive thing, but it was like a traveling fucking show because it wasn't just like us getting in a van ourselves and touring. It was which we'd done before. It was like a bit of a circus because you've got.
17, 18 people, weren't there?
Yeah, you've got a band with like 8 people and like fucking wind instruments and like Fender Rhodes. Carrying that fucking Fender Rhodes.
God.
It's one of the fucking hardest things I've ever had to do in a band. But like it was one of those where you just went and then Emmett got it to the bottom of the stairs and was like, I think it's out of tune. It's like we got it down here. That's the best I can do, mate. Like
it's a miracle we've done it at all, but yeah, I've only got happy memories. I think because it was our first time, we'd done 7 days. I mean, we've done like 2 or 3 in a row before, but we've never done a week. And I think really within the context of the UK again, I can't see us doing 7-10 day tours. I think we're only going to hit 3 or 4 key markets. It's a horrible term, isn't it? But because I can just work out the logistics and go, well, we can do 200 people in London and 100 people in 3 other places. And you just go, well, it's probably not worth going to somewhere else because we're just going to lose money. And that's really sad because in them days, we've gone, let's go, see what happens. But now it's like, well...
having all that information is probably like in a way is like great because you can be like super targeted and just be like, right, we're not going to waste any money on this, or like you're going to waste very little money on this because you know exactly where you should be going. But on the other hand, you kind of like you're not sticking your neck out for like I don't know, like we used to play, like Barrow and Furnace all the time, didn't we? Lots like we would play Barrow like once every year or something like that. And it would be a fucking really good turnout because we had a mate there who did a gig for us, but he would get loads of people there. But to look at how many people listened to us in Barrow was probably like 5. But then like 30, 40, 50 would turn up to a gig and we'd have a really good night and we just like, we got to know so many people from it. So but I can understand like why people don't, or why bands or artists don't like put themselves out there for those sorts of
because I mean, I lived in Northampton when I was a kid, and I remember when Faith No More came to Northampton, it was massive, but don't consider it a real market. You know what I mean?
Look at all that, like the places where like in the '60s where Hendrix used to play, and like he played in like I live in Oldham, he played at like a venue in Oldham, or he'd played like somewhere in Salford where we used to live. Like it's those sorts of like out there places, but that back in the day that was the circuit, that was where you just went round the UK on the circuit. And I think it's in a way having more information is probably detrimental to those people
take the risk, do you? And I think well, you know, cultures, you know, moved vastly. I mean like my little boy, you know, his heroes, you know, the way that musicians were my heroes, YouTubers are his heroes. So, you know what I mean? And people watch people play games and on Twitch and stuff, and it's like that's what they're into. And it's not for me.
I mean, I do it, but I totally agree. That's the entertainment now.
I don't watch people play games, but I watch lots of weird videos on YouTube. I'll quite happily watch, you know, just odd videos on YouTube, or spend 5 hours watching guitar pedal videos. I mean,
he does that as well. Nick does that.
You should be making them, not watching them.
I've done well. I've been doing that as well. But the 19, you know, when we were doing, there was gear demos, but there wasn't shows on YouTube, like, you know, like the pedal show and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like the world's been designed for my needs now. So I sit there and watch hours of horror film documentaries or ZX Spectrum documentaries or guitar pedals. So I don't need to go out anymore. So it's
exactly.
It reminds me of that story of, is it Alice Cooper where he got signed, where he the gig that he played where he got signed, everyone walked out except for the bloke from the record company. And it's like, actually, if he hadn't have done that gig, he wouldn't be as big as he is now.
Exactly.
But it's I mean, you can see why it happened, because the amount of gigs we've played where you drive 200 miles and there's 5 people there, and it's soul crushing, but it's part of the
character building.
It's character destroying, I think.
Yeah. It was you know, I mean, I don't know if I'd be able to cope with that again, to be honest.
No.
I think, you know, where we are, you know, Fierce Dead stuff, we tend to go where the audience is, and we'll, you know, we're very cautious. But I think in them days, we just didn't know, did we? Oh, we lost Nick.
Yeah, he's disappeared somewhere.
Where's he gone? I don't know. What's happened there? We're going to run out of time. We're going to run out of time. There he is. Yeah. Nick.
No.
We're back, Nick. We're about to run out of time.
Oh, bloody hell.
The old zoo, you have to pay extra money in the meter if you want it to do any extra. I haven't got resources like that. This isn't a big broadcasting organisation. This is the Fierce of the Dead YouTube channel. So I just want to say thank you so much, and it's so good to see you both. And
thank you. Thanks for asking us on.
Can we do this again though when you got an album out? Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Nice to see you both. It really is.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'm just going to switch everything off. All right.
See you later.
Take care, guys.
See you later.